Vegas, and then some places down in Brazil. Yeah, there's some listeners everywhere. Welcome to the Falconcast, and this is I'm gonna have to change the name on Thursday because it's not really the Falconcast. It's the Blitz reunion with the great AJ Hoffman, and I'll just skip all the setup, the show stuff. Welcome in, AJ. What's going on, brother?
Not much, man. I like how you play the House of the Rising Sun as soon as the show starts. It's almost like you had intro music. It was interesting.
Yeah, they at the bar here they'll turn the speaker down when I start, but apparently whoever's supposed to do it's a little too drunk. So.
That's all right. Where are you at today?
I'm at Coach's Pub in Midtown, which my good friend Robbie runs. He came on with us a couple weeks ago when I was here. So I alternate Thursdays between Coaches in Phoenix.
One thing I appreciate about you, Fred, is you are always making friends with guys that run bars. That's like one of your strengths.
Yeah, in fact, when I walked in, Neil from Neil's Bar was here, and he sat down and bought me a couple of shots, and we talked for a good 30 minutes. And so mostly any place I'm at, I know the owner pretty well.
Yeah, so. You're very good at that.
Well, I'm good at something. That's about it. I mean, it's nice to be good at something. I mean, if we started listing all the things I suck at, I mean, of course, marriage would be at the top.
Yeah.
But I don't know if marriage and relationships are the same thing or if they're two separate categories, but that'd be 1 and 1A. And then
I bet you'd suck at headbanging right now.
Oh God, man! I told you this before we came on, so I'm going to have months of PT and rehab here to deal with, and but no surgery, which is
good. Yeah.
Yeah, because basically I'd have to have surgery and then go through months of rehab and PT. So it's like, all right, well, let's just skip the surgery part. It's better today, but I mean, it's one of those things I'm gonna have to go 2 days a week for a while, and hopefully we get it to where I can. Man, I just want to be able to get back out and run again. I want to be able to lift weights again. I want to be able to play golf again.
Yeah.
And right now I just feel like a crippled old man, and it's pathetic. So, but yeah. Pelly Rat's here. Chucky D's here. Pelly Rat's doing Liberty Bibberty. I'm glad to see our guy back on those commercials. And Chuck D asking, is that I don't know what kind of machine that is behind me, Chucky D, but I think you've probably seen him before, and they kind of have him here now. So just I have no idea, but I bet you can figure it out. All right, let's can we just start with college football and welcome B. Hannon. I've had multiple offers to go to the Texas UH game, and I'm like, Texas is going to eat their soul. This is just going to be ugly.
You know what? I thought the same thing last week, and UH cost me some money. It was ironic because I was pissed at the time that UH cost me money on a Hail Mary, but at the same time I realized, well, maybe my 5.5 wins ticket over has some sort of life now, because that was certainly a game they shouldn't have won. So sometimes things work out, but I don't know if that'll work out in the end. I still don't know if UH is going to win 6 games, but that if they are going to win 6 games, they absolutely had to win that one. So as improbable as it was, and as painful as it was for me, maybe there's a silver lining. Maybe they can pull off the unthinkable, Freddie. You never know.
No, they can't. But that's all right. So yeah, I'm not going to go to the game, even though everybody I know is going, and I'm like,
you should go and wear orange. That's the way to go.
Well, I know. I invited a friend of mine, and she's actually graduated from UT undergrad and then UH law school, and so I'm like, yeah, you can go with them. I'll give you my ticket, and you can wear your orange, because but that game last Thursday, I was over at PJ's watching it with all my UH buddies, and when they closed it to 35-32, I told everybody, I'm going home. I do not want to be here. When they give up the 4th and long touchdown that cost them the game.
Yeah.
And, they're just so bad in that situation for 2 years now. And as soon as they scored, poor Kira got to hear all these words she's never heard before. But the good news was, after the Hail Mary, she got to hear the same words used in a very different context. So
I just got a barrage of texts when it happened from our girl Kirsten, who just was at first unloading about Dana, and then it was OMG, all caps, lots of expletives, but you could tell the expletives were now joyful instead of angry. So I think most UH fans had a similar reaction.
Yeah, and it's funny because I mean I got a bunch of texts too, and one of them was a friend, and she texted me, "Did you see the end of that UH game?" And I'm like, "Do you fucking know me at all?"
Have we met?
But one more look back because I thought we talked about Washington, Oregon a lot last week. That game delivered everything we wanted.
Yeah, it's exactly what I said it was. It's two teams that are basically even, and came down to the wire. I really think what it boiled down to was Dan Lanning made some big balls calls, and there's a lot of people who were giving him grief about it. I tend to think he did the right thing. I think he handled it the right way. He was aggressive. He knew that field goals weren't going to beat Washington, so he was ultra aggressive on fourth downs. It didn't work out, but like our boy Matt Dean always says, it's decisions, not outcomes. And I think the decision-making process was good for Lanning. The outcome just was unfortunate. And I think the other thing that came from that is, I mean, I said the winner is going to be the favorite in the Heisman race, and Michael Penix is now like a minus money favorite. So no surprise there. But Oregon is still really good, man, and I think Oregon is going to have a good chance to be there for the Pac-12 championship. And if they're a 12-1 Pac-12 champion, I think as strong as that conference is this year, it'll be hard to keep them out.
No, they're legit, and you know that somebody was going to have to lose that game, and we talked about how even they were. And you know, I don't blame them at all for going for it on fourth down, especially when you turn it over to an idiot kicker. You can't make the kick.
Right.
So, but my other takeaways are that Michigan defense is really freaking good, and I actually think they will eat Ohio State's soul when they play. I think their problem is going to be Penn State.
I think Penn State and Michigan is going to be like one of the games of the year. Like those are the top two teams in the Big Ten this year, and we talked about it last week. My thoughts on this Penn State Ohio State game, which I'm sure we'll get into in depth here in a minute. But I think those two teams are the class of the Big Ten, and Ohio State is good, but they're not what we're accustomed to Ohio State being.
Ohio State's kind of like sexy Aggie right now, but
I mean,
a lot of talent, but
But except I can remember a time in my life when Ohio State was winning national championships. Like even you can't remember a time when Aggie won a national championship.
No, I was in college in 1939. But all right, so let's look ahead a little bit, and what are the games that stand out to you this week? And by the way, great call last week on what was it? Miami.
Oh, Miami of Ohio.
Yeah. Call. I tailed that and put it into a couple of parlays, and
yeah, I got a lot of Twitter thanks for that. So I'm glad that we had some winners down there. But the Penn State game, I played it at 5. There was a 5.5. It opened. I didn't get any of that. It went all the way down to 4. Now it's hovering around 4.5. And actually now I'm looking, there's a 5.5 that's popped up again at Circa. So there's anywhere between 4 and 5.5 available, depending on which side you like. I like the Penn State side. My concerns for them, they haven't played anyone, which, but what they've done is made the teams that they've played look like they're supposed to make them look. Like they've embarrassed teams. And the offensive numbers are probably a little inflated on them because they run up the score on those crummy teams. But that defense is for real. And the Ohio State defense is also good. I just don't trust their offense at all, particularly as a favorite. Right now, they're dealing with a bunch of injuries. Abuka's injured. Trayvon Henderson's injured. Mayan Williams is injured. I don't know if those guys are playing or not. They lost their starting corner, Denzel Burke, in the second half last week. Penn State, their offense is not explosive. They're very efficient. It's very dink and dunk. It's grind clock. It's hold the ball, possess the ball, and don't make mistakes. Drew Aller hasn't thrown an interception all year. I think that's enough in a game like this. I talked last week about the physicality of Penn State and kind of the lack of physicality for Ohio State. I think Penn State can dominate in the trenches. I think this is a low-scoring game. This is an old-school Big Ten game, but I like the dog here. Getting anything more than 4, I think there's value on Penn State, and I think they've got a real good chance to win this game outright.
I do too. In fact, I'm going Penn State money line here. So it's one of my favorite plays. And one thing, like I know Penn State's defensive line can slow the run, and if Ohio State has to start throwing the ball, Penn State's got one of the best corners in college football, if not the best corner in college football. And he can lock down a Marvin Harrison as good as Marvin Harrison is. So,
and especially if Ibuka's not on the field, that means there's not a secondary guy, like not a go-to guy on the other side of him.
Yeah. All right. It was interesting in the SEC last week with, but one thing before we go on that I'll mention about Ohio State in their favor is the fact that they do have that win over Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And that win looks better despite Notre Dame losing to Louisville, which I thought they would. That's still the best win of any of the 3 teams, frankly.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I mean, again, how good of a win is that? Is Notre Dame going to be like, do we think Notre Dame's not going to lose another game this year? Is Notre Dame going to finish as a top 10 team? I don't know. I don't think their offense is very good. We all thought Sam Hartman after 2 weeks was like a Heisman contender, and he hasn't done anything since.
Now he shaved his beard and looks like Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, I'm just not sure how good that Notre Dame win is, and I think it was one of those games where Ohio State, it's not like they did anything special on offense. They were, they were. It's a good win, but they could have easily lost that game too. And I think Notre Dame is not even close to the level of Penn State, and it's certainly not close to the level of Michigan.
Yeah, I tend to agree. All right, SEC, you got Tennessee, Alabama. Tennessee beats Aggie last week, and I don't want to keep beating on a dead reveille, but I mean this team has so much talent, and they're not football players; they're just athletes.
Well,
and they're not coached up.
Yeah, it's also like Jimbo Fisher, who goes out and pays big money for an offensive coordinator who knows what he's doing, and says you're in charge, except when it's nut cutting time and when we need like a 4th down call or a big time 3rd down, then I'm going to make the final call. And I mean, it's insane that Jimbo Fisher is still like, they have to move on from this dude. They really do, because as long as he's trying to have this control over the offense, which in games, if he's the guy in charge, Aggie's just not going to win games. He's a dope as far as play calling goes, and he is a detriment to them because he's still trying to play a brand of football that doesn't work in the modern era. So as much as I'd love to, let's also face it, like Max Johnson looked good for a game, he sucks.
Yeah,
like that guy. It's hard to win in the SEC with that bad of a quarterback. So, I don't know that the quarterback they had before him was good enough to win anything, but he's certainly not. It's just I will never let myself trust a Jimbo Fisher offense again, is what I'm saying basically. So as long as he's around, this is what Aggie is going to be.
Well, it's funny if you're watching that game. Tennessee never looked like a loser, even though it was a 1-score game.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think you're 100% right on that. But that leads me to Tennessee, Alabama, which, of course, last year, and neither of us have been as high on Tennessee without Hendon Hooker.
No.
But, they've still got a really, surprisingly good defense.
Yeah.
I know Alabama struggled against Arkansas last week, but the same thing. I never thought Alabama was losing that game.
Right.
And I kind of like Bama here.
I do too. I think it's a great matchup for Alabama's defense. They've got the highest graded coverage unit in the country per PFF, and that's kryptonite to a guy like Joe Milton. He is just barely inside the top 100 quarterbacks in EPA. I think you mentioned Arkansas last week. I think that was a sleepy spot for Bama. Like
Yeah.
you consider they were coming off the A&M game, which now like Nick Saban clearly knows he has to take seriously. It's bit him in the ass before, so he takes that game seriously. And between this Tennessee game, they've got a bye next week, before the LSU game. There's no look ahead here. Tennessee has far too often, and even last week, settled for field goals in the red zone.
Yeah.
You cannot do that against Alabama. You can't beat Alabama kicking field goals. So, Bama lost this game last year. It was the first time since 2006 that they lost to Tennessee. I don't think they make it back to back. And this is also Tennessee's, it's just their second road game this season. The first one was one that I said, they're going to Florida. They're going to lose outright. They were favorites at Florida. I said Florida's going to win that game outright. This Tennessee offense is not going to travel, and it didn't. They lost to Florida outright. I think that they are a rough team to back on the road. So I'm with you. I like the Tide here. I think it's a lower scoring game because I think Joe Milton has a hard time making anything happen. And the truth is, Alabama's offense just isn't very good.
Right.
But this is a game that I can see. I think Tennessee could win this game, something like 30-14, something like that.
You mean Alabama?
Yeah, sorry, Alabama.
Yeah. I'm all over Alabama in this one. One team I'm kind of intrigued by is I think Missouri is actually better than I gave them credit for.
Yeah, that's a season win ticket that I'm going to lose. I can already tell. Like I think I'm one game away from losing already.
But they may wind up being the second best team in the East when it's all said and done. I mean, it depends on what happens with Tennessee, but they're surprisingly good, and they've got a fat kicker, which I love.
Yeah, I was planning on backing South Carolina this week. Like I had this game circled as this is going to be a great spot to back South Carolina, but then South Carolina crapped their pants at the end of that Florida game and let Graham Mertz break their back.
God.
So I just can't trust their defense. And like you said, Mizzou's been quietly one of the biggest surprise teams in the country. The win last week over Kentucky put them kind of in the driver's seat to be the second best team in the SEC. And the truth is, Georgia's gettable. So they could end up winning the SEC East, which is crazy to think about, but it's possible. South Carolina gave up 41 points to Florida and Tennessee in back-to-back games. And Missouri, if you're giving up 41 to Florida and Tennessee, Missouri's offense is better than both of those. So South Carolina is going to get their points on offense. So I tend to like the over in this game more than anything, more than trying to find a side. But I don't trust South Carolina to stay within this number as bad as their defense has been.
A game that I also had circled, now I'm a little concerned. USC at home against Utah. Utah unbeatable at home. On the road, some vulnerability. But Caleb Williams has looked very average the last 2 weeks. And, I think part of it's Arizona's probably better than we thought after what they did to Washington State in that stretch. But I kind of like USC here, but I'm not as confident as I was a week ago.
Yeah, I kind of like USC too. It's a good bounce back spot for them. This is one of the few games on the schedule where their terrible defense probably won't hurt them because Utah's been so bad on offense, particularly away from home, but neither of those quarterbacks that they're running out there can play. They're not very good. And the rumors are now that Cam Rising's probably going to not play at all this season. I think there's an emotional letdown for Utah with that news. If you're ever going to get a focused effort from USC, I imagine it's off just getting smacked around by Notre Dame. I still think, I said this before, I think this USC team is going to have multiple losses by the time it's all said and done. This doesn't feel like one of them. If this game were in Utah, I'd be all over the Utes here. But at USC, coming off an embarrassing loss, I think we get their best effort against a team that is going to – USC's whole goal on defense is, hey, just do what we keep doing, and we're going to try to outscore everybody. That could work against this Utah offense. Utah's offense is going to have a hard time keeping up, in my opinion.
Yeah, they were able to survive Cam Rising in some spots, but those guys just aren't that good.
No.
Replacing him, and it's a big drop off. Anything else you like on the card today this week?
I think that this is a good time to fade Washington. They escaped that win against Oregon. I don't know. I don't know if I would consider this a letdown spot. They've got Stanford coming up, but that said, what we saw in the Oregon game is something. I guess we've seen it before, but it just kind of reiterated that Washington defense is good. It's not great, and Arizona State's putting up some yardage. Oregon's one of the most physical teams in the Pac-12. Washington's going to like that. That had to be just an exhausting game. And
it certainly looked like it visually.
Yeah,
there's a lot of hitting in that game.
And what Arizona State does well on defense is they're good against the run. And this feels like a game where Washington gets out to an early lead and looks to run the clock out. Remember, Michael Penix spent some time in the injury tent last week.
Yeah.
It's probably starting to make sense as you're like playing for more than just a Pac-12 championship. You've got bigger goals in mind. If you're, if you lose Michael Penix, the season's over. So
Right.
It's starting to get to that point where it makes sense to limit how much he's exposed in these blowout games. And it feels like a game where they're going to try to run the ball a lot late. Arizona State's solid against the run, and they can maybe hang around within that number. 26 and a half is a lot of points. So that's one that I'd look at. I think, unfortunately, I'm going to have to back Iowa as a favorite again.
Yeah.
It worked last time.
Yes, it did.
It just feels gross doing it. But this is like 32 and a half points is the total. It's down to 31.
Yeah.
I mean, this is one of the lowest totals of all time. But Kirk Ferentz has absolutely owned this series against PJ Fleck. They've won 8 straight matchups, and Minnesota's been held to below 10 points in 4 of those matchups. Minnesota, like I talked about it with Washington, and I believe this to be true. I say this a lot when G5 teams go up against like an Alabama or someone in the middle of their schedule and then have to go play another G5 team. The physical domination wears on you.
Oh, yeah.
And Minnesota just played Michigan, and they just got smacked around in that game. They lost the yardage in that game 432 to 169.
Yeah.
And while Iowa's offense they're not going to come close to 400 yards, I think defensively they can do a lot of what Michigan did. So Iowa's allowing 12 points per game against teams not called Penn State. Minnesota's going to have a real hard time putting up points here. So I think I might find myself laying it with the Hawkeyes again. It's a gross feeling, but
I know. But you know what? Any Iowa game I bet on, basically what happens is I don't watch a second of it. I just check the score on my phone.
I think that's a smart way to do it. One other one we've talked a little bit about Michigan in this game, and you can get the team total on Michigan State at 10.5. I like under 10.5 points for Michigan here, or for Michigan State, because where is their path to offense in this game? Like, if you said, let's find a game where Jim Harbaugh would look to embarrass someone, well, it's probably against Sparty, who's won 10 of the last 15 in this matchup, including 2 of the last 3. But this Michigan State's at a real low point right now. No one has scored more than 10 points on Michigan yet. They're allowing 6.7 points per game, the fewest in the country. They've got the best red zone defense in the country. And Michigan State doesn't do anything well on offense. They're outside the top 100 in pass efficiency, rushing offense, third down conversions. I don't know where their points come from. So, like, if Michigan State scores 2 touchdowns here, I'll be very shocked. So I don't know if Michigan's going to run away and hide from them, because, Michigan's offense has been hit or miss. The defense has been hit. And I think they hold Michigan State to nothing.
Well, and, all stats aside, I've watched enough of these kids to know they've quit. They got nothing to play for.
I think you're right.
And you
I
throw
mean,
that on top of everything, it's like,
the
yeah,
coaching drama, all that.
Yeah.
It's a lost season for them. So and against a team that's got literally everything to play for and has a chance to embarrass their rival, you know they're going to do it.
God, I just had a really inappropriate joke I was going to make that involved.
It's your podcast.
I know. It's like they were. No, I'm not going to do it. It's let me tell you about the Phoenix on Westheimer before I tell a Larry Nassar joke. So basically, if you're a Penn State fan, this is your place to go. It's packed with Penn State people. Premier League every weekend. Best soccer bar in the city. I was over there yesterday and imbibed a few with Vu, the owner.
You? No.
Yeah. Great food, great staff. Bailey was working the bar. And look, if you want to go and watch any sport, this is your place, right? They get great crowds for Astros. They get great crowds for American football. But the soccer crowds are the best, no matter what team you support. You'll get an opportunity to go in, and you'll have fans of your team there. And they have like a lot of obscure things that you can't get anywhere else. Like they're a Celtic bar. And now I've become a Celtic supporter because I hang out with those guys every now and then, and they're fun, and they drink a lot like me. So head on over to the Phoenix on Westheimer. Say hello to the crew. Make sure you check out the great food. Ask what the special is. They always have something awesome every day. That is the Phoenix on Westheimer. All right. Ready to kick around some NFL?
Let's do it, baby.
All right. So what's the you got any thoughts on tonight's game, man? I kind of feel dirty that the Saints are favored here.
Yeah, it's weird. I think the questions about Trevor Lawrence are legit, though, and this is a spot where there's got to be letdown from Jacksonville eventually. You know, they played 2 games in a row in London, beat 2 teams that they weren't expected to beat. Then they came back and had a division game, and they, handled the Colts well. At some point, there's a letdown. At some point that adds up. Not taking the bye and then having a division game after. I think this could be it. The hard thing is I just don't trust the Saints' offense. It's terrible, particularly in the red zone. They are like 28th in red zone efficiency, meaning they end up settling for field goals more often than not. And my podcast partner, Scott, he actually gave me a good prop bet for tonight is the Saints kicker over 1.5 field goals. Like that feels like
not bad. I like that.
Yeah, because they're just not scoring touchdowns. And as soon as they get in the red zone, Derek Carr turns into a pumpkin. It's really difficult to run on the Jags. And obviously the best playmaker for the Saints is Kamara. I think a prop to look at also would be his over on receptions because they still want to get the ball in his hands, but it's hard to run into the teeth of this Jags defense. So that's what I'd look at a couple player props, but overall, I think the line's probably it should be like I wouldn't say it's right. It's right given the questions about Trevor Lawrence's health, knowing that he's not going to be 100%. I don't know how well he's going to be able to move around, which is a big part of his game. So I don't have any interest in the side.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. And watching the Saints play the Texans last week, I did Derek Carr, every time they got the ball down there, it's almost like he turns into a different quarterback.
Yeah.
And at the end of the game, I just thought they were going to have to get incredibly lucky just to tie it. Throw up some kind of, throw a ball in the end zone, hope it gets tipped or something, because they weren't going to finish. And It's been hard to see because I know you were a Derek Carr admirer before I was, and I came around on him. And now I look at him, he just doesn't look like the same quarterback.
Eventually, not every quarterback is like great for 12 years or whatever. Like he was solid for a good stretch, and injuries have piled up, and now he's in a new system, and he had to flip through a few systems when he was with the Raiders. So
yeah, lots of different OCs there.
Eventually, that stuff takes a toll on you, and honestly, I don't know. I don't know that anybody would be ultra successful in this Saints offensive scheme. I think they're probably a team that needs to be looking for a new coach as well. I think that they were hoping that they'd get some of the leftover Peyton magic, and it's just not the same. So I don't love the Saints' offensive scheme. I don't know that. I wouldn't say no quarterback can succeed in it, but no quarterback in reason can succeed in it, in my opinion.
All right, they're off this week, but some thoughts on the Texans, who I don't think any of us saw 3-3 at this point of the season. I admit I didn't.
No way. And they've gotten fortunate a little here and there, but I've been saying it's awesome. It's awesome to see them at least trending in the direction of being relevant again. I think they didn't have their third win until week 18 last year, right? So to have it in week 6 or week 7, it's pretty cool. And again, I still say there's still room for improvement for CJ, because eventually, you'll get a number one receiver at some point. Eventually the offensive line will be healthy, or you'll have better guys on that offensive line. Eventually, hopefully, you'll be able to run the football a little bit. So I really think that there's a lot more upside on this Texans team this season. I don't know. I mean, maybe they win 6 games, 7 games, but had you told me at the beginning of the season they could win 6 or 7 games, I think almost everybody would sign up for that. It's just such a massive improvement under a first-year head coach that you'd have to be excited about that. So again, I don't think this is a team that they're just not talented enough to be like a playoff contention team.
Right.
But they're clearly improving, and it's a lot of fun to see.
And, so my thoughts on this is, like, Nico Collins is developed into a WR1, right? I mean, he's not.
He's the number 1 wide receiver for the Texans.
Right.
But imagine if he was your number 2 wide receiver and you had like a high-end guy. Then you're a real problem. And then you've got Tank Dell in the slot, and now suddenly you've got weapons. You know what I mean?
And I think Stroud is way better than I ever thought he'd be. And I think we talked about this last week. When I saw one play where he checked down to a 4th receiver and only got 5 yards, but he did it in like a second. And, I always hate these Ohio State guys because they're one-read guys. And it's hard to blame them when, Garrett Wilson's 10 yards open and that's your first read. But he is really developed. He gets better each week. Finally threw an interception, but he throws one pass like that every game. He should have had one earlier. And that's okay. I'll take one really awful pass a game and, do a lot of good ones. And that's what he's doing. And I'm real impressed with him. I think he makes good decisions. The offensive line got Howard and Tunsil back, and once they get to full speed, that's going to be pretty good. So the running game, I don't like Dameon Pierce. Dameon Pierce is a very average running back.
Well, you drafted him in a position where you'd get a very average running back,
right.
And so you shouldn't be surprised. Here's what I worry about for the Texans. Bobby Slowick might be good enough that he's not here next year, and that would be a bummer, because I think he's a big reason why CJ's had the success he's had. So he might be good enough that he's coaching himself out of town, which would be unfortunate for the Texans.
Yeah, I think it might take 2 years before he gets on that list, but you never know. And I got to say, nobody'd ever heard of him before he got this job.
And I didn't mean like it'll be this off season, but I think if you keep seeing that development, it's going to be unavoidable. But you know what? I say this all the time. If your assistant coaches are getting head coaching jobs, that means your franchise is in a pretty good spot. That means good things are happening. Like the Eagles lost both their coordinators to get head coaching jobs. They're probably okay with it because they got to a freaking Super Bowl with them.
Well, and look at what Shanahan continues to do.
Oh,
he loses great coaches every year.
Yeah.
I mean, not just D'Amico, Robert Saleh, Mike McDaniel. I mean, all these guys.
He's in the conversation to me for best head coach in the NFL. He may be the best coach in the NFL. I mean, obviously not like if you look at full resume, it's obviously still Bill Belichick. But if you needed someone to coach your team this season, there's nobody who's taken Bill Belichick over Kyle Shanahan. I just think what Kyle's done in San Francisco and keeping that, like the fact that he's got Brock Purdy looking like Joe Montana is just, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm blown away that he just keeps losing great coaches, and even on defense, and yet they just keep being great at it. And despite Sunday's loss, that was a weird spot with the weather and everything else, and the fact that Shanahan has struggled so much against one particular defensive coordinator. So I don't think it was a surprise they lost.
No,
They're not going to lose a lot of games.
and Chuck D in the chat says Andy Reid's the best coach. Imagine a world where Kyle Shanahan has Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid's had Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy and Trey Lance for the last 5 years. Who do you think has more Super Bowls? Yeah, I promise you it's not Andy Reid.
I could argue that Reid should have won more.
I agree. So listen, I like Andy Reid, but Andy Reid has the best player in the whole world on his team. So it's almost like the Belichick thing. Like, he had Tom Brady. It's now Tom Brady. I guess you can make an argument that like who made who, but I don't. You put Patrick Mahomes on any team in the world, and they're a Super Bowl favorite.
All right, so
and somebody said Andy Reid made Alex Smith look good. Alex Smith was literally the number 1 pick in the draft. Kyle Shanahan's got Brock Purdy, the last pick in the draft, and he's making Brock Purdy look better than Alex Smith ever looked.
And let's be fair, Alex Smith, before he got to Kansas City, had a couple of great years in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Once he finally got settled into an offense. So, I mean, Alex Smith didn't suck.
No.
And but they knew they would be better with Patrick Mahomes, and that was the right move.
Yeah.
So, all right. Cleveland at Indianapolis. We don't know about Deshaun. I really want to bet the Colts here, even though I think the Browns have the best defense in the league.
The line says there's no Deshaun. I can tell you that now. Like, I would say there's probably about a 5 to 10% chance Deshaun plays. And the fact that he held a press conference yesterday saying there's no timetable on me, it tells me he's not playing. I think that this, rather than try and decide like which one of these backup quarterbacks is going to be less shitty, because I mean Minshew was dreadful last week. I like the under 40. The whoever's played quarterback for the Browns this year, they're 28th in yards per play. So that's with all the guys they've had playing. And if Deshaun were to play, I don't think they'd be taking shots downfield because his shoulder's the issue. The Browns game, Browns have gone under 40 points in 4 of their 5 games. The one game that there was more than 40 points scored, the Steelers had 2 defensive touchdowns.
Right.
So Cleveland is like their top 5 run rate team in the league. That's the strength of the Colts defense. And the Browns defense continues to be like historically good. This is they're on pace to be one of the, like, people are laughing at it, but it's like they're doing some all-time great defensive things. And Minshew under pressure, I want nothing to do with him. So I'm just going to say under 40 and let these guys have an old school AFC North rock fight.
I like it. All right, Buffalo at New England. Man, last week I have to admit I was rooting against your Bills because we're in the suicide league at the Circa, right?
Yep.
And there were a bunch of people that if the Bills go down, we're in great shape. We took the Rams last week, but they wind up holding on and winning. I still think, and I know I keep expecting Belichick to figure things out.
No.
But Mac Jones sucks. This team isn't good. I think Buffalo's going to go in there and if Josh Allen has half a shoulder, I like Buffalo a lot.
That's my worry here. Like, first of all, let me start by saying I'm not going to take any money that I've earned and take it to a betting window and say, hey, can I please have a ticket on the Patriots? Like, I'm not doing it. I'm done with that. I've done it a couple times this year thinking they were going to break out of it. They're not. But the Bills are worrying me right now. They started slow out of the gates against Jacksonville and London. They never really got offensively going against the Giants. The defense has held up, which is surprising because they lost 3 of their best players for the season over the last couple weeks. But it doesn't, like, it feels like eventually the dam's going to burst on that side. I don't think it does here against the Patriots. But Josh Allen, what he looks like right now is kind of what he looked like late last season when his elbow was hurt and he was like, I'm going to play through it. I'll tough it out. And he just wasn't the same explosive guy. He's not going to run, I don't think. That worries me a little. Mac Jones, though, against Buffalo, has been so bad. He's 1-4 against Buffalo. The one win was the crazy wind game where he threw the
Right.
ball. He threw the ball 3 times in the entire game.
Yeah, like the 10-7 game where they ran the
Yep.
ball 150 times. Yeah.
The average score of the other 4 games, 35-18 Bills. Mac Jones has thrown 7 picks. He sucks against this team. I'm going to end up passing the game just because I don't trust what Buffalo's offense is doing right now. But again, even like if it was New England plus 10, I'd still have no appetite to back the Patriots here.
Yeah, I just don't think you can anymore. And we got to quit thinking, oh well, Belichick will get it done.
Yep.
Here's one where even though this is a road game for the Commanders, I think what the Giants did last week, coming off that game where they could have won against the Bills, I kind of like Washington in this spot. Tell me why I'm wrong.
I went the other side. I like the Giants a little here, and not because I like the Giants; they suck, but I think that there's been an overreaction to just how bad they are. Remember, at the beginning of the season, their win total was set at 7.5.
Right.
Washington was 6.5. So the expectation was the Giants were going to be the better team. So far, the Giants, their losses, Buffalo, Miami, Dallas, San Francisco, Seattle. Like, we expected them to lose all those games. The Giants should be 1-5.
They weren't favored in any of those games.
No, I mean, so the Giants have basically did they get blown out in some games by worse margin than they probably should have? Yeah, but you know what? Remember the Commanders? They got housed by the freaking Chicago Bears.
That's true.
Like, so thinking of this team as a 2.5-point road favorite now, I think the perception of the Giants is way worse than the reality. And like, they've played the toughest schedule in the league. Washington's played the 27th schedule in the league. And I think also Tyrod Taylor he doesn't make mistakes. There's not a lot of upside to him, but he doesn't turn the ball over. And you saw them look more effective last week. I think part of it was because they had Barkley back, and teams have to respect the run a little bit. They didn't when he wasn't there. But I trust Taylor not to make some big bonehead mistake. So if you're giving me a home favorite, or excuse me, a home dog that I don't think is going to make big bonehead mistakes, I'll take it. Like, Washington's they beat the Cardinals, the Broncos, and the Falcons. I mean, I just don't buy into this team being good enough to be a home favorite against anyone, really. Or excuse me, a road favorite.
All right, well, thank you for talking me off that, because no, I mean, all of that makes sense. That's why I love bouncing stuff off you, right? Okay, so Atlanta and Tampa Bay. I'm going to let you take 30 seconds here while I run to the little boys' room, because I'm an old man and sitting here for an hour drinking water and vodka. I have to run to the bathroom, but it's right here. It'll be 30 seconds, so give the people something on Atlanta, Tampa.
Make sure you wash your hands. I like Tampa here off the blowout loss. The Bucks are just a better team than Tampa overall. Every DVOA metric, they're better. Offensive, defensive, special teams. And this is one of the few games where I feel like Tampa has a true edge at quarterback. There's not going to be many teams where you go, oh, Baker's clearly better than this guy. Baker's clearly better than Desmond Ridder. And the Falcons, good against the run, awful against the pass. They're the 29th best pass defense in the league. The Bucks, all they're doing is chucking the ball around. And then we get Ridder on the road, outdoors, against a top 10 pass defense. The Falcons have been outscored by 15 points per game in their 2 games outside of Atlanta this season. And the 2.5-point number says these teams are equal teams. I think the Bucks are better. So, getting anything under a field goal at home, I think, is value on the Bucks. So I know Atlanta was supposed to be a playoff team. I'm not sure I'm buying into it. So Tampa, to me, is the better team right now.
And you probably covered it, but I really like the way Baker's playing. I know he's taking his hits, but the guy is, he's still got that cockiness, and
yep.
I think he's a pretty good fit there.
He's certainly better than Desmond Ridder, which is, I mean, way better than Desmond Ridder.
And I look back on that Texans game, and Desmond Ridder had the game of his life, college or pro. I mean, he put every pass into an area where nobody could get it but his receiver. And I'm like, really? You do this against the Texans? Go do it against the Commanders, dickweed. But yeah, and Angel says, Fred, let me smell those. The hands are washed. Don't worry. And it's funny. I'm walking out and I run into a young lady friend of mine, and she's like, "Wow, I really like the glasses. You look smart." And I'm like, "Well, I'm not." So
yeah, but
whatever it looks like. All right, let's move on. And I love Angel and Mike. They're the best. So move down to Detroit and Baltimore. This is my favorite game of the weekend to watch.
Oh yeah.
I love the Ravens, and I think Detroit is if they're not on a level with San Francisco and Philadelphia, they're really close.
Yeah, so we did the Dream Preview last night, and everybody was on Detroit except me. And I didn't fade them. I didn't press the button on them, but I'm starting to think maybe the Lions are a little bit overvalued. They won a game at the beginning of the season against the Chiefs that nobody thought they were going to win. And then they lost a home game against Seattle that they were 4.5, 5-point favorites in.
And I love Seattle in that game.
So let's say those two results wash out. Since then, all they've done is win 4 straight games against below average teams. I still think this team is kind of exploitable against the pass. And it feels like the Ravens offense is really close. Like the 2 games ago, they dropped all those passes. They were dropping touchdown passes. Last week, they kind of nutted up in the red zone, but they kept driving the field. I think they break through eventually. And then when you think about these teams, like the strengths, the Ravens are the 3rd best pass defense in the league. The Lions running back room right now is a mash unit. I don't think Montgomery's going to play. I don't know if Gibbs is going to play, but if he does, he's not 100%.
No.
And on top of that, they're talking about like 15 to 25 mile an hour winds on Sunday. So you're telling me outdoor Jared Goff in a windy day has got to beat you? It doesn't feel great to me. So the number feels right. I'm a little higher on Baltimore than most people. I'm a little lower on the Lions than most people. I think it's hard for me to get to the Lions are like the 3rd best team in the league all of a sudden because they've played a bunch of crappy quarterbacks and held them down. I think this is a real test to see like where both these teams kind of pile up, in my opinion.
Well, talking about the Baltimore offense, I see signs each week that everybody's getting more comfortable.
Yep, it's close to breaking out. It really is.
Yeah, and I think that and that's the process of the season, right? You're not going to be perfect from the start, and I think they're going to get better. But I also think the Lions will get better, and I think at Baltimore. I'm kind of with you. I like the Ravens. Pittsburgh at Los Angeles. Can T.J. Watt beat them by himself?
This was my 5-weight on the Dream Preview. Which, by the way, on the Dream Preview, I'm 20 wins, 9 losses, 1 push. So I'm winning. I'm beating RJ. I'm beating Fez. I'm beating Scott. I'm the king of the castle right now. So, Pittsburgh. I love the Rams here. Pittsburgh's in the discussion for the worst offense in the league. Pickett is 32nd in QBR. There's one guy behind him, Bryce Young. They are 31st in rush DVOA. One team behind them, the Giants. The Rams, I think, are an above-average team. They're just below average defensively, but they've got a top 5 offense in the league now. This is where it really sold me. The Raiders were 3-point home favorites against the Steelers in week 4.
Yeah.
Now the Rams are 3-point home favorites. The Rams are way better than the Raiders. So the Steelers could easily be 1-4 or 0-5. They're +7 in turnovers in their 3 wins. Fezzik's power ratings have Pittsburgh at a -3 and the Rams at a +0.5. So there's 3.5 difference between them on a neutral. So any home field advantage you give to the Rams is gravy in my mind. this Rams offense, especially since they added Cooper Kupp, it's a problem, man. And all the preseason doubts about them were really about health. Like,
Yeah.
was Matt Stafford going to be able to hold up for a whole season? And I think those were reasonable questions.
Sure.
But right now he's healthy, and a healthy Matt Stafford's one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the league still. I mean, so now you're telling me this offense, the worst offense in the league, is going to have to keep up on the road with a top 10 offense? I don't see it happening. I love the Rams here.
Yeah, and listen, I've been high on the Rams from the beginning of the season. I think people wrote them off too soon.
I played their win total over. I think I think the Rams were dangerous coming in.
Yeah, so I'm with you on that one. Arizona and Seattle, I can find no reason to even think about. I want to bet Arizona because the number's big. I could find no reason to do it. I think Seattle. I mean, the thing is, they played some good games early.
Yeah.
And you see that, but the last few weeks they've just been getting destroyed, and I don't see it. I think Seattle. I love Seattle here.
Yeah, they were feisty early on. Losing James Conner was brutal for that team because he was getting them good chunk yardage on first down, which kept them out of third and long situations. When you've got Josh Dobbs in a third and long situation, like you're not going to succeed. Seahawks had the best run defense in the league, and that means you're counting on Josh Dobbs to keep you in the game. He's coming off his worst 2 games of the season, completed less than 50% of his throws in the last 2 weeks, 3 picks. His average QBR has been 13. Here's what I did on this game, though. I'm playing Seattle in the second half.
Okay.
I'm not talking about a halftime bet. I'm talking about the pre-game bet. You can bet Seattle in the second half -3.5. Here's what I like about it. Arizona, when they've done well this season, they've started strong, and then you see them fade away in the second half. They've lost the second half in 5 of their 6 games by an average of 11 points per game. Once the script goes away for Arizona, you're left with just their talent, and they're probably the least talented team in the league. So I like Seattle generally, directionally for the full game, but I think we can take out any variance and just say, let's look at Seattle after halftime, where I think they're just going to have a massive edge, a better coached, more talented team.
All right, before we wrap it up, I got to tell you about my good friend Dr. Linville, who we'll get him on here soon. Probably Monday we'll spend some time. And Dr. Linville, of course, as you know, does a great job with your hair. So if you're, wanting to look better and feel better, then go and get the NeoGraft procedure. It works great. No anesthesia, just numbing medicine. It's just like Novocaine, right? It's like going to the dentist. And 95% of the grafts take because they're handled and prepared safely. In fact, almost all of mine they take the hair off the back of your head, they put it on the front. And the hair on the back of your head always grows. And so he came up with an individualized plan for each and every one of you. And they only charge $4 per graft, right? And right now, there's a special $3.50 per graft. And if that doesn't sound like a big difference, keep in mind I had 2,451 grafts when I had it done. So go to hairspecialisthouston.com/getfalconhair, book a consultation, let them know you heard about it here. Your consult fee will be waived. That's a $150 value. So you can just go and talk to them. Even if you're not all that interested, just walk in and have the conversation. And ladies, they got the Boob Spectacular going on for Halloween. So you want to get some work there, go check them out. And again, just go to hairspecialisthouston.com. All right, so next on the list is Green Bay at Denver. And I have to admit, these are 2 teams that I really have no interest in betting right now.
I'm in the same boat. The Packers were favored, around this time of the week last week at Vegas, and then Vegas got hammered into being a favorite. I don't think highly of this Packers team either. If they didn't finish off the comeback against the Saints, they would have lost 4 straight, and like Denver, their only win would be over the Bears. Right. So would Green Bay be a road favorite then? There's nothing here for me. I don't want to back the Broncos. I don't want to back the Packers. I think both these teams stink. I think when you blitz Russell Wilson, he becomes like one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. Jordan Love, like after the first week, has just stunk. So I've got nothing here. I don't like these teams. I will say The Broncos defense that was so embarrassing early on, holding the Chiefs to 19 points last week was impressive. Do I think that it's sustainable? I don't know. I just, it's hard for me to find anything to like about this game.
Yeah, I mean, and what do we always say? I mean, one of the best weapons you have is the ability to pass on a game. So I will pass here. Chargers at Kansas City, man, I'm kind of sick of the Chargers. I really am.
I think the market is too.
They're so talented, and yet they, they're like, I don't know how to describe them, but they're like Aggie, only worse.
Yeah, I think the market's tired of the Chargers too, and I get it. But here's what the Chargers don't do. They don't get blown out. What they do is they consistently lose basically every close game. And now they're playing against a team who basically doesn't blow anybody out. The Chiefs have no interest in covering big numbers. Herbert in his career, 5-1 ATS against the Chiefs, +5 cover margin. The only loss, the ATS loss that they had was last year in the overtime game. Chargers were +3. They lost by 6 in overtime, so they played them even the whole game. The Chiefs' offense is still not as good as it has been. Every game that the Chargers have lost this season has been a coin toss game. And the Chiefs this year scoring 24.5 points per game, and they've played games against the Broncos and the Bears, the two worst defenses in the league, and they're still only averaging 24.5 points per game. If you hold the Chargers to 24, I don't see a way they don't. If you hold the Chiefs to 24, I don't see a way the Chargers don't cover that number. The Chargers are great as a dog, and they're trash as a favorite. So I like the Chargers here, +5.5. I think this is probably another heartbreaking field goal loss for the Chargers.
Yeah, and some bad coaching decision at the end that screws him, because I think
he sucks.
He's awful, right?
He really is. He is bad. And you know what? Last week was the first game in a long time where it was like, man, that loss felt like it was kind of on Justin Herbert. I make a lot of excuses for him because I think often it's bad coaching that hurts him. Last week was he didn't play his best game, and he made a bad decision at the end of the game. He was under pressure the entire game, but that's going to happen. I also thought Kellen Moore was a little conservative in that game. He was a little scared. They ran way more on first down than they ever do. But I think Kellen Moore playing against Dallas, he was playing a little tight too. I don't know. I feel like Justin Herbert plays well against this Chiefs team. Again, I think they lose, but I don't think it's by much.
Yeah, that game a couple weeks ago where it was Staley against Josh McDaniels. And
jeez.
That was like
the Bonehead Bowl.
That was the coaching Special Olympics, man. That was brutal. All right, couple of good games here to close out the card. I mean, Miami and Philadelphia, we're talking about two of the best teams in the league. I think Miami's offense reminds me so much of the greatest show on turf right now. And as long as Tua is healthy, I think they're going to be a lot of fun to watch. But this is a tough spot, I think.
I do too, and I've said this all along. I've been arguing with Fezzik and RJ and Scott about this team. I think Miami's got the best best offense in the league by far, but I think their defense is below average.
Yeah.
And I think if you have one unit that is like well below average, I don't think you can be the best team in the league. And I think the Eagles are elite. So this line says they're even. So I'm going to put my money where my mouth is and say I'll take the Eagles. They've got one of the best defensive fronts in the league. So and if they can slow the run down, which I mean they're the best, they're second in run defense. If they can slow the run down, I think they can do a lot of what Buffalo did to Miami's offense. And the other thing that the Eagles do well is they get pressure without blitzing. You can't blitz Tua, but they can get pressure without blitzing. And I also think we're getting a good buy low spot here on the Eagles coming off the loss to the Jets. Jets did a great job of limiting Jalen Hurts.
Right.
They did the same thing to Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. Both those guys came back and played like the game of the year after they played the Jets. The Jets are going to make a lot of quarterbacks look bad. I think that Jalen Hurts is going to have a lot of success against this Miami defense. So, again, it's scary fading a team that can easily put up 40, 45 points. But I like the Eagles. I just think the Eagles are a better team, and this line says they're even. So I'll go with the Eagles.
Yeah, I agree on that one too. And just getting back to it, I think Seattle's going to be my suicide play this week. I
Oh,
got to
I
talk.
think that's by far the safest play.
Yeah, I got to talk my partners into it. But and then finally Monday night, San Francisco at Minnesota. Minnesota has been, well, I mean, they're kind of what we expected because last year they won all those close games. That's not going to happen again. And San Francisco coming off the loss at Cleveland, but I still think this is an elite team.
Yeah, listen, this was a perfect storm for a bad Brock Purdy game. There was bad weather, and the Browns have a dominant pass rush and don't have to blitz. And Purdy, like Tua, is a blitz killer. Now they play a Vikings team who their defensive coordinator, like his whole thing is Brian Flores, I blitz more than everybody. So I don't. The thing that worries me here is I don't know about Christian McCaffrey's status. But what I do believe is the few teams that can give the Niners trouble are teams that can run the ball against them, and the Vikings are not a good running team. The Giants couldn't run the ball on the Niners, so what the Niners do? They just set everybody in the middle of the field, said, we're taking away the middle, and if you can beat us over the top, cool, but you're not going to run the ball, and you're not going to get anything in the middle. And the Giants' offense was garbage in that game. I think they can do the same thing to Minnesota, and without Justin Jefferson, you take away your Kirk Cousins' best friend down the field, and if you take away the middle, you're taking away Hawkinson. Like, where do they go now? I don't know. I think Minnesota has a hard time moving the football here, and I think you've got a pissed off 49ers team that is still the best team in the league. So under a touchdown, I'd look at the Niners only. I think there was maybe some value on the Vikings at open at 8, but
Yeah.
under a touchdown, I've got no interest in them.
All right. Well, can you hang around for a second? Because I want to bounce a TV take off you. I just need to tell
Sure.
people about Lanham Industries. And guys, if you're going to get a place in Trinity or you already got a place on Lake Livingston, great service for your home. And when I get mine up there, these are my guys, right? They'll help you find the right home, location. They also take care of everything: cleaning, lawn care, laundry, maintenance, inventory management, property management services available. Veteran owned and operated, 5-star rating from everybody, highly trained and dedicated crews. So if you got a place up there and you need any of that stuff done, give them a call, 936-581-6166 or 346-773-9577 or online at lanhamindustries.com. And if you can't remember all that, just hit me up at the Falconcast at yahoo.com and I'll get you all their information. Great people, great supporters of the podcast. And, they've got you covered for Lake Livingston. All right, so 2 shows that I've been watching that I want to get your opinion on. First off, Loki season 2.
I haven't seen any of it. I mean, honestly, it's football season, so I haven't seen a lot of TV, but
Right.
I've heard it's very good.
Season 1 was very good. Season 2 makes absolutely no sense to me.
Okay.
And this is part of the post in-game Marvel timeline where they're going off into all these multiverses and different timelines, and it's really hard to follow. And and I love Loki's one of my favorite characters, and Owen Wilson's a great character in this show. But I'm kind of losing interest through 2 episodes of season 2.
Are they releasing them one episode at a time?
Yeah, which I friggin' hate. That
yeah.
makes it hard for me to.
What's this? 2004? Give me a break.
Yeah.
We have the technology.
Yeah, exactly. And then the one that I watched this weekend when I couldn't sleep, obviously when there was football on, I was watching football. But Follow the House of Usher on Netflix.
Ooh, I haven't heard of it.
If you're even remotely an Edgar Allan Poe fan, it'll be one of the best things you've ever seen.
All right.
They basically turn it into each episode is a different Edgar Allan Poe short story, and it's all tied to this one. And it's got a little horror in it, and I mean, I thought it was fantastic. I couldn't stop watching it. So
is it kind of Hitchcocky, or is it scary? Like, what's the deal?
It's a little scary. I'll just say there's almost like a Faustus feel to it, where you make the deal with the devil, and then how they kind of turn the whole thing into there's like they read some of the lines from Poe in there, and it's just everything's so appropriate, and it's like really cool where you're having this really evil thing happening, and they're reading this Poe poem that's from one of the books or one of the short stories. It's very different. I you know what? I'd kind of compare it to a better version of the first year of American Horror Story.
Okay.
So,
I mean, if the first season of American Horror Story was strong, so I'll certainly give that a look.
Yeah, it's so 8 episodes. So that's basically all I've been on.
Probably once if and when the Stros get knocked out of the playoffs, that's probably when I'll be able to watch a little TV.
Yeah, see, the difference with me is I can't sleep at night, right? I sleep for 2 hours. I get up, I pour a drink, I smoke some weed, and I watch Netflix because
life is hard,
right? Either that or it's like rugby or something.
You're not working 60-hour weeks?
No, I'm not. Sorry.
I feel like you got the better end of the Blitz breakup, if that's the case.
No, but I'm actually toying with taking a second job just until I get these business deals done, which are going to happen by the end of the year. But yeah, I'm basically doing the podcast 2 days a week, and the rest of the time I'm working on business, and or drinking or playing with the dog.
Yeah, so. Or drinking, smoking weed. Yeah. Hard life.
Yeah, it doesn't suck.
I have to do that on top of my 60-hour weeks.
Hey, at least you can walk and turn your head. So
that's true. That's a bonus.
All right, brother. Thanks so much as always, and I will be in touch. And great stuff. And I mean, this is always the best day of the week for me.
I always have fun, man. Always good to talk to you. Always good to see the old listeners hanging out in the chat. So love all you guys. Miss all of you guys. And let's hopefully make some good money this weekend, huh?
And once again, tell them about your Straight Out of Vegas AM and all that stuff.
Yeah, Straight Out of Vegas AM, Monday through Friday. It's up at like, I guess, 6 o'clock Central Time, 6 a.m. Central Time. So we're up all night doing it, getting it ready. So give it a listen. Follow it on wherever you get your podcasts, Straight Out of Vegas AM. And we like our boy Will Doctor puts his golf picks up there. He had another outright winner last week, 12-1.
Yeah, I saw him tweet that out, man. That guy's like on fire. 7
outright winners this season, and like some of them are paying 66-1, and it's like he's a wizard. But that's on that same podcast feed. There's a baseball podcast on there, and then obviously RJ Bell's Dream Preview feed is our second, or it's the main feed, we call it. But we do all our big stuff there. Our NFL and our Scott and I's college football podcast is there every week. We go through every top 25 game and give our best bets of the week there as well. So something for everybody. But yeah, give them a follow. And then of course at pregame.com, it's where you can find all my picks and stuff. I've got a UFC package up this weekend for UFC 294, lots of big fights. So check us out, man. I appreciate it, Fred.
All right, brother. Thanks a lot. I will talk to you soon, my man.
All right, man. Later.
All right. So people mentioning that, I'm going to get my fist glued to my face. Guys, this is it's going to be a while before my neck's going to be right. And if you missed the beginning of the show, I'm looking at months of rehab and PT. But no surgery. It's just going to be hard for a while. So I'm doing this to keep my head up, because when I don't, I walk around and I'm like this, and I don't want my neck to wind up like that forever. So that's why I'm doing it. So Chuck asking what were the shows. Okay, so Loki on Disney Plus, which I love Loki. I just think the storyline is just kind of meh. Acting's good, Owen Wilson. But that Fall of the House of Usher, I was blown away by. So Virginia Buttonweed says, need to get you a sexy collar. My hope is after about a month of this, I won't have to wear this anymore. But it's the same thing. I'm trying to keep my head from going down. All right, one last thing for you guys. I got to tell you about Lawyer Dave. I was hoping Lawyer Dave would show up. And I will tell you this. Lawyer Dave set me up with the doctor who's treating my neck. And it's a guy he sends a lot of clients to. And, the truth is, he's fantastic. Lawyer Dave's fantastic. We hung out a couple times earlier this week, and you guys heard him on the show Monday. He was talking about Michigan and a bunch of college football. But listen, the thing about Lawyer Dave, if you're in an accident of any kind and he takes your case, he's going to make sure you go to the doctor. He's going to take care of that. You don't pay a dime out of your pocket until you win your case. It's that simple. And guess what? If he doesn't do it for you, if it's not something that he handles, he'll give you a great lawyer. He'll refer you to somebody. And I know a couple of friends that he refers people to, and they're great at what they do. So give him a call, 713-626-8900. Tell him what's up. And if you're in an accident in the city, and you're going to be, right? This is Houston. Just give him a call. 713-626-8900. Need a lawyer? Better dial Dave. Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Like AJ, I love you guys so much. I really miss you guys, and all the daily stuff we used to do. So this is at least we're able to do this once a week. And, I miss working with AJ, and the only way I'd ever go back to radio would be if I could work with AJ again. I think I've been clear about that. I mean, the guy's the best there is. And, it wasn't just us that made the show. It was you guys. So thank you so much for coming in. I hope you have a great weekend. I hope you win all your bets. And until Monday, stay sportsy, Gulf Coast badasses.